All right, so we've talked about the influence of Nikola Jokic on the Denver Nuggets. Mike Malone, his coach, done a marvelous job. Jamal Murray, but I think most of the listeners of this show want to know what the heck Darko Rajakovic is going to do for the Toronto Raptors. What's your thoughts, Matt?
Well, look, I talk to people I know in Memphis. They speak extremely highly of Darko. And so I think at the end of the day, a lot of, the energy that he's going to bring, I think it's going to be, positive, right? He's putting together a staff. Jama comes back, Malalela, which is great to see. He always brings great energy to the court on a daily basis for anyone that knows him. But, ultimately, what we're going to find out is what direction do the Toronto Raptors go, right?
Yeah.
So for any great coach, like he talked about at his press conference about defense, or he could talk about the X's and O's on offense, and then the relationships you build with players, all of those things are determined by what players you do have, right? Raptors played the last couple of seasons the way they played based upon the roster construction, right? So when I look to what this next season will bring and what Darko will bring, a lot of it's going to be dependent upon what is the construction of the roster and who's on it, who isn't on it. And so to me, those are the things that I don't think you come in today, well, he's going to run this or he's going to defend like that, because one or two players changes all of that. Well, he's known for pick and roll. Okay, so Jakob Pertl comes back, and now you get Scotty Barnes. Oh, well, they're going to you're going to put those guys in pick and roll. Okay, well, if you're guarding those guys, you're like, okay, neither one of them up to this point in their career have shown that they can knock down shots, right? So Scotty's working on his shooting right now, which is extremely important. So, there's all sorts of different components into that. I don't know, Jonesy, if you would agree with that, we're going to find out over the next month, 2 months, and then
totally agree
how all this is going to play out.
Totally agree. And I think, somebody said once they hire a coach, it'll show the direction. And a lot of people think that because he's a first-time head coach, they're going into a rebuild, retool mode. Well, hang on a second. This guy's been a head coach internationally for a while. Like I don't think you're any closer to the coach determining what's going on, because you need to look at the roster. He's good with development, but if you make a trade like you do with Sacramento, remember that one, Matt and John, years ago, where it was supposed to be going in the tank, and all of a sudden it gets turned around, and you go with, you have a Dwayne Casey who's there for development, and all of a sudden the roster turns
into. Was that the Rudy Gay trade?
Yeah. All of a sudden, John, it turns into one that you can win with, and you go the other way. And I think what Masai, Bobby, I think what the front office has done is, okay, we got a guy that can take us in either direction, depending on what our roster looks like and how quickly it develops or comes together. And as you said, Matt, really well respected. You talk to people in the Serbian basketball community about him. I've heard people say, when Memphis plays Denver, he and Jokic sit there for, a great length of time sitting down and chatting. And look, there's something to be said. John, you mentioned it earlier about Denver's sustainability and the way they play and the selflessness and playing together. Don't you think a guy like Darko, that has been schooled in that and knows that, understands that concept as what we used to call the European game or the international game? Well, guess what? Now it's the NBA game, and it's sharing the ball and being selfless and playing together as a team, and not giving the ball to one guy on the wing and saying, okay, man, go do it. Denver's proven it works, and I think the NBA game has evolved to that, and the Raptors are hoping they have a coach that understands that, and regardless of the personnel, can develop or win with guys who can do that.
But what linchpins have to fall, Matt, for this team?
Is Van
Vliet the first one, or the only one, or the key one?
Well, there's, there's multiple. Number one, I go back to what Masai mentioned at the press conference, not with Darko, but the one after letting Nick Nurse go. And that was, he felt the team played selfishly, right? And they did at times. And the times that they didn't, they played really well. But I don't think in that room there was a total complete buy-in to that, hey, we can do something special, right? You go back to this group, only 2 players on this group played in 2019. 2.
Yeah.
And people forget that. And there is a residue of success.
So that's Pascal and Freddie, right? Pascal and Freddie. Right?
OG did not play and Chris didn't play. And so that championship mentality and what it takes on a daily basis and all those sort of different things, there's players on that team that hadn't been to the playoffs before, right? Don't understand the grind that it is. And what did Jokic talk about? He talked about, the failures along the way that help lay the seeds to ultimately your success. So, so now you look at, okay, where do you go from here? My sense of it is, like any organization, they have multiple plans, right? You have a plan A, 1A, 1B, 1C, whatever. You have multiple, and that includes obviously Jakob Poeltl, who's a free agent. That includes Gary Trent Jr., who is going to be a free agent. That includes Fred VanVleet, who's already opted out, right? So you have those different scenarios. And then you get into your roster of, okay, by all accounts from what we hear, and I'll add this too, don't always believe what you hear, because as we know, anybody that has followed a Masai and anybody tells you that they know what Masai is thinking, they're lying, because they don't. Yeah. They don't.
Okay? Matt, to that point, there's an old adage that says trades that happen are rarely rumored, and trades that are rumored rarely happen. Yeah. Like, and I think Masai kind of fits some of that, in that you don't know where he's going to go. He and Bobby, you don't know where he's going to
go. And they have all the different options. And I would say that when Dwayne Casey was let go, replaced by Nick Nurse, what did he do? Made a big deal.
Big splash. Yeah.
And you get a player like Kawhi. How do you get that player? That player doesn't want to be in San Antonio. That player played 9 games. So my sense of it is, based upon history, that he's looking to do a deal. That would be my guess.
Yeah.
And is that could go in multiple ways. That could be a big splash deal. That could be a retool, because I don't think they want to rebuild. I think they want to retool. And so I think that is keeping key pieces, right? What did they learn along the way? Everybody wants OG, right? I don't think OG is going anywhere. That's just my own, personal belief. Scotty up to this point is not going anywhere. They bring back Gary Trent Jr., right? And then, the decision becomes, the word out there about Pascal, right? The word out there regarding Fred VanVleet. And then I think the key to all of this, because you could actually bring everybody back, and it's going to be a good team as long as they buy into one another. But the key is going to be the depth in the bench. And remember, on a championship team, so again, what are your expectations? On a championship team, Serge Ibaka and Fred VanVleet came off of the bench.
Yeah.
On a championship team, right? So what are the expectations? Precious has to take another jump. Is he an undersized big? He doesn't want to be. He wants to be a wing. Is he capable of some of those things? He's shown flashes. Can he start doing that consistently? We'll see. He was really effective at times, as we know, as an undersized big, especially against his former team, Miami, which tells you it's there. The question is it there every night? Because he was a major, major force on the boards. And then Chris Boucher, that 20 minutes, 25 minutes of energy, right, on a nightly basis. And the Raptors have always relied on internal growth. They didn't get that last year.